This guy may be the strongest police officer to ever live, and in 2008 he came this close to becoming the world's strongest man and dethroning the greatest strongman of all time. This is the story of Derek Poundstone, the world's strongest policeman. Strongman has become a pretty well-known sport in modern times, combining compound lifting like deadlifts with more practical and athletic feats, like the plane pull, the car carries, and who could ever forget the murder ball. It's become a big favorite sport to watch for strength enthusiasts all across the globe. While the current World's Strongest Man title has shifted around quite a bit in the 2020s, during the early 2000s, the sport of strongman was primarily dominated by one man, Polish Mariusz Pudzianowski, who is argued as being the greatest strongman of all time, having won the World's Strongest Man on 5 separate occasions. But during his reign, he was close to unbeatable. The Americans struggled for years taking this guy down, only managing to do so once in 2006 with Phil Pfister, which the Pole himself called a fluke and a mistake on his end. But Pudzianowski came back with vengeance and won his title back the following year in 2007. However, during this time, police officer and former local powerlifter Derek Poundstone was making his move, and would become known for the closest race perhaps in strongman history. American Derek Poundstone was born into a military family at an Air Force base in Idaho back in 1981, which to be honest says a lot about him and his family, but also what type of badass he would eventually become. Growing up, he actually spent most of his years in Spain and Italy, but when he was around 10 years old, his family moved back to the United States. And when Derek was around 14 years old, he started lifting weights at his local YMCA, like every other teen in the 90s apparently. However, Derek wasn't like other kids. He was quite literally built different. After moving to Connecticut in 1999, he started competing locally in powerlifting, which he was quite successful at, becoming the Connecticut state champion at 21 years old, where he bench pressed 432 pounds and deadlifted a whopping 686 pounds in competition, both of which were miles above the old state records. However, Derek had bigger goals. After being notified about a local strongman competition on the back of a flyer, Derek became hooked on the idea and started competing immediately. Despite being very different from powerlifting, requiring you to move around a lot more and lifting a lot of awkward objects, Derek managed to earn himself a professional strongman card in 2004, which meant he could now start competing while earning prize money and even potentially land himself a qualifier for the World's Strongest Man. However, he wasn't all about that life. Derek had ambitions. He wanted to be able to provide for himself and his family long term. And he wanted to get himself a proper job to support his endeavors in strongman. And what better job could he have possibly chosen? From 2004 to 2006, Derek took 2 full years off competing in strongman to focus exclusively on becoming a police officer.
Status: arrested.
Taking a full education at the police academy, he ended up becoming a local officer in a town called Naugatuck, where he still operates today. I would personally like to see a crime statistic of that town, because I know for a fact that people would be less likely to commit a crime if the officer could literally flip your car over. But even though Derek took 2 years off competing in strongman during this time, he didn't stop training. In fact, he had gotten stronger than ever before, and when it was time for him to compete again, Derek placed 5th in a competition called the St. Patrick's Strongman National Qualifier, and he also came in 5th at the America's Strongest Man competition. A pretty decent result. But what he did next was about to shock everyone. Derek was invited to a competition called the World's Strongman Challenge, which was almost as old as the World's Strongest Man, where several strongman legends have competed in the past. And with a mind-boggling overperformance, Derek ended up placing 2nd, only behind Lithuanian Žydrūnas Savickas, who mind you was the 2nd place finisher at the World's Strongest Man. Things were really looking up for Derek. He was the #1 upcoming strongman, and doing so while protecting his local town. Unfortunately, during that same year, while trying to deadlift 805 pounds in training, Derek ended up sustaining a massive spinal prolapse disc herniation in the lumbar region. This meant that anything he did would cause pain. Walking, sitting, and especially lifting. At this time, very little was actually known about rehabilitation, so the doctors advised Derek to actually give up on his strongman career altogether and stop lifting weights forever.
This is pain.
But because he's an absolute Chad, Derek decided to take the rehab into his own hands. He was lifting and doing everything he could both with and without pain, but trying to rebuild his strength slowly while working full-time as a cop doing everything in his power to get better once again. And in 2007, 1 year after sustaining his career-ending injury, it paid off. Derek Poundstone came back and ended up winning America's Strongest Man with a record-breaking score, and placed 4th at the World Strongman Championships, which at the time was about as big as the World's Strongest Man. But not only did he place well, he also fully rehabilitated his back, and his deadlift was now completely pain-free, which now meant that Poundstone had all the tools he needed. He had a job, he was strong and completely pain-free, and ready to take on the big guys. In 2008, Poundstone received an invitation to compete at the Arnold Classic, which today is regarded as the second biggest competition in strongman, and he managed to come in 2nd place just behind Sejūnas Savickas once again, and qualifying him for a run at the World's Strongest Man competition later that year. And oh boy, would it not be the duel of a century. But just 3 months after losing to Savickas at the Arnold Classic, Poundstone would do something unbelievable. He became the first ever American to ever beat the man in competition at the Fortissimus event, leaving him with the sweet-sounding title of the mightiest man on Earth, giving him a massive confidence boost heading into the World's Strongest Man contest of 2008. This year was stacked with competitors from all across the globe. You had former World's Strongest Man Phil Pfister and Magnus Samuelsson, English Terry Hollins, American Dave Ostlund and Travis Ortmeyer, even Arild Haugen. But above all else was the 4-time World's Strongest Man Mariusz Pudzianowski, going for his record-breaking 5th title. Being a first-timer at the competition, Poundstone was somehow both an underdog and a favorite to win at the same time.
Derek Poundstone, the police officer from Connecticut, is a rookie, but one of the favorites.
He weighed in at 313 pounds while standing at 6'1", being one of the smaller guys in the competition height-wise, but definitely making up for it by out-muscling his competitors. At least his tan was on point. He started off incredibly well by placing 2nd in the Power Stairs event after lifting 500 pounds up a flight of stairs. He also finished 3rd in the car walk and was actually tied for 1st place heading into the 3rd event, which meant that he was competing last in the Fingal Fingers, where he actually dropped a few points, ending up in 4th place. However, the 4th event would be his biggest challenge thus far. The deadlift event. The exercise where he had previously hurt himself and was now the only thing standing between him and leading the World's Strongest Man. Pudzianowski had managed a massive 10 reps beforehand, but through sheer mental and physical power, Poundstone managed to match the pole, coming out with 10 total reps, leaving him in 2nd place with just 3 events to go. And this was where Poundstone really pulled ahead. He won the log press event and placed 3rd in the plane pull, putting him in the lead by just a single point ahead of Pudzianowski, with just 1 event remaining. The final event, which has been a staple at the World's Strongest Man competition and perhaps the most recognizable strongman event ever, the Atlas Stones. With just 1 point more, Derek had to beat the pole in this event. Otherwise, he would lose the title. And off they went, following each other with each stone. Nobody was looking at the time, just which one of these guys were in front of the other. And with just 1 stone remaining, they were neck in neck. And Poundstone seemed to be just a smidge ahead. Until...
Who will it be? Poundstone has it and he drops it! It's Pudzianowski winning the title yet again!
He missed the platform with his last stone, having to reset completely, and Pudzianowski ended up winning his 5th title and making history. Now, even though this was Derek's debut at the World's Strongest Man, he would never end up recreating his result or actually improving on it, dropping in placings every year until he eventually retired in 2017. However, with a badge on his chest to this day, he can still look back at an amazing career with 2 Arnold Classic victories, 3 America's Strongest Man titles, and a handful of strongman world records. But what he's perhaps the most known for today is being the strongest police officer of all time. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the Lifting Legends series and want to see more like them, make sure you leave a like and a comment with who you'd want me to check out next. And I will see you all next time.